Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us. Understanding Weight Gain, Lifelong Solutions for Lasting Fat Loss. This is my first seminar I'm putting on, and it's a little longer than I thought it would be. So just hang on with me and we'll get through this. Save your questions, write them down, bring them to the lecture tomorrow, and we will solve the burning questions that you have. Okay, so this is part one, week one. So, Introduction to Metabolism, part one. We're going to learn the fundamentals of metabolic health and metabolic dysfunction and learn how to improve our health naturally. This is a complicated subject, which I think is why weight loss is so hard to get. This week, we will learn why we're talking about metabolism, what is metabolic health, and what is metabolic dysfunction, and also why energy expenditure is not under conscious control. We're going to figure out why the eat less and exercise more advice isn't always useful. So first, I like to talk about health versus weight. Weight, I consider a number on the scale. Health is everything else. It's how you feel. It's how much energy you have, how much you sleep, how much you enjoy your life. You know, these are the things that really matter. The rest of it is a number on the scale. Now, there are numbers that will tell us about how healthy your metabolism is, and we'll get to that a little bit later. So if you find yourself a little bit overweight, you're in the right place. Each week, we're going to build on the previous topics and learn how to live a healthy metabolic life. So why do we start with metabolism? It's mostly because weight is just a number on the scale. And what we want is energy to do the things we want to do, a bright, stable mood, a pain-free body, smooth hormonal transitions from perimenopause to menopause, and also decreased risk of stroke, heart attack, and dementia. So metabolism is how our body functions. And metabolic health isn't just calories in versus calories out. While I do believe that overnutrition or overeating is the root of metabolic dysfunction, there is some new information that might enlighten us. You know, what we're starting to see is that metabolic dysfunction actually just drives hormonal dysregulation of appetite and satiety. So the metabolic dysfunction is actually causing you to overeat rather than the other way around. And we will get more into that as we get deeper into this talk. So some terms that you should be aware of. There's mitochondria. I talk a lot about that in clinic. These are the little powerhouses, the factories of the cell that convert energy or nutrients into energy. This is the production of ATP. ATP is the energy currency of our body. All of our cells need ATP to run. So you cannot eat ATP, you cannot supplement with it. Your body has to make it. And if your mitochondria, your little energy factories of your body aren't working right, then you're not going to get enough ATP. And they're actually thinking that's the main driver of heart attacks, is that you get low on ATP, your heart muscle dies. Now, what our mitochondria use to make ATP are glucose and fatty acids. Glucose, I'm sure you're familiar with, a simple sugar, and complex carbohydrates actually break down into glucose, and then your body can use that energy and make ATP. Same with fatty acids. Fatty acids are useful when glucose energy is low. Now, excess weight gain and the imbalance between hunger and satiety are truly the reason why we end up overweight. So you've got the being hungry side and then feeling full and satisfied. And this is normally on a pretty healthy lever, where if you're hungry, you eat, then you feel full. Now, some people get dysfunctional, and when they eat, they actually never feel full, and they keep eating and eating and eating. And over time, that excess caloric intake causes weight gain. So the reality of our situation is that most metabolic dysfunction is the result of insulin resistance and metabolic inflexibility. And there are nearly 80% of Americans have some kind of insulin resistance or metabolic inflexibility. And that's why we're seeing this obesity epidemic. There's a lot of noise about everything that you should be doing and the little hacks from Instagram. But what I'd like to focus here on is, the 95%, what gives you the most bang for your buck? How much you can really solve your problems by sticking to the most basic understanding of our metabolism and really getting at the root of the issue. So, talking about insulin resistance happens when you have chronic energy imbalance, where your caloric intake exceeds caloric expenditure consistently over and over, and you end up with abdominal fat and overweight. And then your cells become insensitive to insulin, and insulin and the cell are kind of a lock and key situation. So insulin is the key to the lock in the cell. And if you're being insulin resistant, your key doesn't work anymore, and your body will not be able to uptake the glucose into the cell. And as you have a lot of glucose running around your cell and fatty acids that cannot be used, they get stored away as triglycerides and body fat. And so you can see here that metabolic inflexibility is when you've just got a lot of nutrients floating around the body with nowhere to go, nowhere to be used, and you're tired and you're run down, but you're overweight. So you think, how come my body can't use anything? It's because you're in the traffic jam. So we are going to undo our traffic jams, get all of our nutrients being utilized, and you'll find you will feel much, much better. Okay, so metabolic health. Now we're switching to what does it look like to be metabolically healthy? So metabolic health is all about energy, and it's how efficient your body is to produce and manage energy. And when you have good metabolic health, you're going to have sustained energy levels, fewer energy dips, overall well-being, and decreased risk of chronic disease. So the lab values, and you might want to pause the video right now, the lab values that you want to look for are your fasting blood sugar, and it should be less than 90, triglycerides, and HDL. You want a 1-to-1 ratio. So I personally aim for a triglyceride around 65. I think that's a healthy number, and if you can get your HDL that high, you're very, very healthy. Men in general have lower HDLs, that high density lipoprotein. So you will need to be more astute and more, more aggressive about limiting your carbohydrate intake so you don't drive up your triglycerides. There's blood pressure, anything below 120/80, and your waist circumference. So if your hip to waist circumference for women should be less than 1, and for men it should be about 1. So those with good metabolic health, when you have those lab values like I'm talking about, you will see that you have stable energy, you have healthy weight management, lower risk of chronic disease. So if you nurture your metabolism, it will take care of you. Now, metabolic dysfunction. Let's flip the coin over and look at the other side. Metabolic inflexibility, also called metabolic dysfunction, is where your body cannot efficiently use energy. So if you have difficulty switching from using carbohydrates and fats for energy, then we know that you're a little bit metabolically inflexible. And this would look something like if you're hungry 2 hours after you eat, your body is not able to use your stored fat for energy. We also see insulin sensitivity issues, mitochondrial dysfunction, and energy imbalance. And what energy imbalance is when you are chronically overnourished. You are eating more calories than you need, or you're eating way less calories than you need, then you get in a metabolic dysfunction. So those are kind of the symptoms. Those are the symptoms of metabolic inflexibility. So these are the other symptoms of metabolic inflexibility: hunger, fatigue, weight gain, mood swings, exercise intolerance. If you notice that you have any of these, then we know that you have metabolic inflexibility and we need to work on it. So the last part of this is metabolic function is not under conscious control. So it's not like I can just say eat less and exercise more. It's not conscious. Your body is working in the background to maintain your set body weight. We've talked about this before, about that body fat set point. Now, that is a really important thing to know because your body perceives all caloric restriction as a threat to survival. And so when you do something like eat less and exercise more, your body sees that as a threat to survival and will turn some levers, move some levers to make your body a little bit less efficient. So that's one side of it. Same if you're chronically overeating and gaining fat. So this next slide, you can see what happens when you have metabolic dysfunction. You end up with unconscious overeating and reduced energy expenditure. That's a lever your body moves. You gain body fat, and then that fat gets inflamed, and you're back to metabolic dysfunction around and around. All of it leads to negative health outcomes. All of those chronic diseases I was talking about: less energy, fatigue, irritability. So if it's not just eating less and moving more, what is it? Well, we've talked about this before in clinic. This might be a good time to bring out your in-body scans. You can check your basal metabolic rate. That is the main driver of how much energy you're burning per day. That's what I watch very closely every time you come in and we get you on the in-body machine, because your body can turn that down very easily by decreasing your maintenance body temperature. Most of the calories you eat per day are used to keep your body temperature up. And that's why people who get gastric bypass are very cold. Their bodies are just turning down the thermostat to preserve energy, to preserve that body fat. There's non-exercise activity thermogenesis, or NEAT. That is all of the energy expended for things that aren't your basic sleeping, eating, or exercise. So that's walking, taking the stairs instead of the elevator. That's people who just fidget a lot. That's walking around your house pretty often. It's just being active all day long. That's where the 10,000 steps a day comes in. That's the category I put that in. That's NEAT. Diet-induced thermogenesis, that's where you use more energy to digest and absorb food. Protein fits in this category. And then you have brown fat thermogenesis. This is where you have brown fat cells that help heat your body and maintain your body temperature. Brown fat is healthy, white fat is not. So this process is complex, and that's why managing weight is so challenging, and why the old advice of just eat less and exercise more doesn't do it. So have you ever wondered why some people overeat and they don't gain weight? Well, what a healthy metabolism does is signal to the brain when you have enough to stop eating. You stop being hungry. Now, if you happen to overeat anyway, say that it's your birthday and you're going to have an extra piece of cake you don't normally have, and you ate a big meal. What your body will do in response to that, if you have a healthy metabolism, is heat it up a little bit. Your body will get hotter, and you might not be hungry for a couple of days. So that's a normal, healthy metabolism. So you can see here when your basal metabolic rate will rise as you have more energy. Your NEAT will go up. Sometimes if you overeat and you have a healthy metabolism, you might have more energy to do things you wouldn't normally do, or you're a little more active, or you're fidgeting more. It's unconscious movement though. And then you have your hormonal and neurological regulation. So if your thyroid, your GLP-1, your leptin, and your sympathetic nervous system are working efficiently, you will not be hungry and you'll move more. And then people with a healthy metabolism have efficient fat oxidation and increased thermogenesis. I don't know if you've ever seen somebody sweat when they eat, but that's in this category. So now we know the truth about metabolism. We're looking to get our bodies running like a fine-tuned machine, and we know about unhealthy metabolism and symptoms of that. Next week, we are going to learn about how this got hijacked in the first place, and then weeks after that, we're going to go into troubleshooting and finally end up in nutrition and exercise. Okay, bring your questions tomorrow. Thank you so much for watching, and I appreciate you all. Bye bye.